Hello, I am Brendan and I'm a 6th grader at Riverside Elementary School. I was wondering, what did George Washington think of King George III?
Interesting question. What did Washington think of George III? Well, he had a strange relationship with George III, but because of course he was the subject of the king. And when George III was proclaimed king, George Washington very much participated in all the rituals that were part of that kingship. So he would go to the king's birthday parties and he would toast the king, just like every other loyal subject. And when the first complaints of the Americans against taxation happened, they were focused against Parliament, not against the king per se. So the king doesn't become really an issue in the struggle for independence until they declare independence. It's in the Declaration of Independence that the king is portrayed as the great enemy of the American people, as what we would call a tyrant. That is, some king that's overstepped their legal bounds and starts to use arbitrary power. They do whatever they want. And so George III is very much depicted in this way, and George Washington agrees with that depiction. He agrees that George III is responsible for declaring the colonies to be in rebellion and therefore subject to the sword, subject to military authority. He agrees that George III needs to be held responsible for sending foreign mercenaries, as they called the Hessians, over to the United States to attack and subjugate the new country. And so George Washington was very much not a fan of George III during the war itself. But afterward, George Washington did not hold a grudge against George III. In fact, he made it clear through his envoys that he wanted the United States to have good relations with their former sovereign, including with their former king.